Now then, you join me back at TeamSport Stockton, and today I'm going to take you through a session which from my point of view was full of overtakes. 42 of them altogether, I think. This track isn't the fastest or the widest, so overtaking is usually quite tricky, but I'll take you through every move I made, some of which were extremely easy, some were lucky, and others were down to really good kart placement on my end. Anyway, it's been a while since the last karting video, so let's get into it. Right, so like I said, I'm here at TeamSport Stockton, and I thought this was just going to be your average public session, but it turned out to be 45 minutes worth of constant overtakes. And surprisingly, unlike most public sessions I've been to before, there was only 1 or 2 yellow flags, so it was actually quite knackering. If you go into a competitive session where you're matched with people in the same weight class, etc., then you're not going to see as many overtakes as this. But it's always good to get a bit of practice in, and as you'll see later on in the video, kart placement and track knowledge is key to getting ahead in certain situations. The first few overtakes were fairly standard. Everyone was on cold tyres, and it was basically whoever managed to find the grip first when exiting the corner was going to be the winner. As you can see, this next fella in the purple was having a tough time getting the kart turned in, and we ended up having a little bit of a bump while he was wrestling with a wheel. Generally, the smoother you are, the less time you'll spend sliding. The less time you spend sliding, the quicker you'll be. So if you're a complete novice, just bear that in mind. Now, I would have been more than happy to be forced around the outside of this right-hander because the apex wasn't mine on the entry. But the guy on the inside handed me the place, and I could move on to the next one, which happened to be the first one down into this harsh braking zone. I didn't really get a good run on the kart in front, but I was happy to brake a little bit later, and that's the difference when you've been a few times before. I just had a better idea of where the braking zones were. Right, now, this kart is me mother. I do pass her quite a few times this session, but she didn't always make it that easy, so keep your eyes peeled for her later on in the video. And next up was Glenn. It's always tricky getting past this fella. He knows exactly where to put his kart, and he isn't afraid of getting his elbows out either. Unfortunately for him though, neither am I, and sometimes you just have to let them know that you're there to force them into a mistake. Whilst we were dicking about though, another karter was catching up, and when I tapped Glenn at the top of the ramp, killing my momentum, he slid past. Luckily for me though, he made the mistake of trying a move which I knew was never going to work on this next lap, so I made sure to stick to the apex on the left-hander, and he drifted off to the outside, which meant I was on the inside for this next tight left. I moved across, maybe pinching his nose a little bit, but it was a lovely way of regaining that lost position. This guy at the bottom of the ramp was overtaking on yellows, but you can't expect everyone to see every light straight away, so it's now to fall out over. On the restart, 2 people were caught napping, and they both lost out on a handful of places, but my best move of the night was at the top of the ramp. If I play it at full speed, it looks like I just got super lucky whilst everyone was tangled up, but if I play it back in slow-mo, you can see I was thinking about sending it around the outside, but I noticed a lot of space opening up on the inside of the corner, so I swung round, got a little bit of a bump boost which sent me past everyone, and that was 4 places made in one corner. I don't think many people can say that, especially around this track. I knew if I cleared me madre before the down ramp, I'd pull out a bit of a gap on the quicker lads behind me, so I sent it up the inside, maybe drifting a little bit wide onto the slippery side of the track, but I could now focus on what was ahead of me without worrying about who's behind. The next couple of overtakes were fairly straightforward again. This first one was just down to the other lad having a poor exit out of turn 2, and the next guy was taking what most people consider to be the racing line by aiming for the second apex, but it left the inside wide open for me to sneak through. There was a little bit of traffic building up on the next lap, and the next overtake was on the up ramp again. Nice and easy move up the inside. I did find myself on the wrong side of Tom going into the double left-hander though, so I eased off the accelerator, and luckily for me, he slid wide. There's me mum again, who's still getting used to the karts. She was around 7 seconds a lap off at this point, so I made light work of getting past her, but she was much better in the later sessions. And that was the end of session 1. With 16 karts on track, it was definitely tricky trying to time your runs for a fast lap, because you were bound to catch someone up at some point. And it was actually the gadget in the white helmet who set the quickest time in these new karts by about 1/10 of a second. Session 2 started the same way as the first one. The first overtake was purely down to being smooth and trying to get the traction first out of this left-hander, which leads onto one of the longest flat-out sections of the track. I caught up to me mum, who decided red flags didn't apply to her. Oh! Parents these days, eh? But when we did get restarted, it didn't take too long to catch her up and get past. I used the up ramp again to squeeze past someone. You can carry a lot more speed through this corner than people think you can because of the wide exit and the grippy surface underneath you. And Sophie was next on the list. She took a very shallow line going into turn 3 and was battering this poor lad in front of her. So I just made sure I kept out of the way by creeping around the outside on the cold concrete, which then gave me the inside line for the turn 4 hairpin. I had a decent run out of the tight left leading to the up ramp, but the guy in front clocked me coming and squeezed me into the wall. Looking back, he probably thought I was the one hitting him a few corners ago. Cheers, Sophie. I eyed up a move into the hairpin at the bottom of the down ramp, but I was nowhere near making it. Fortunately for me though, the lad in front got a snap of oversteer, and it wasn't me before you say it in the comments. I've reviewed the footage, which meant I could just simply drive past him. Brownie had a similar moment at T4 going a little bit wide, so I just had the inside line for the right-hander that follows it. And after 2 or 3 straightforward overtakes, I was back behind Glenn. Not for long though. I used as much of the track as I could to get a better run up the up ramp, and he left just the right amount of space for a kart to get through. You've got to remember, Rubbin is racing, and I know for a fact he's a better driver than I am. It's just I'm half his weight, so I've got to take advantage of these opportunities when we go karting. I couldn't quite get this move finished on the next lad. I had the inside at turn 3, but he sent it around the outside, so I gave him the space into turn 4. I did get pinched a little bit on the exit by the tyre wall that closes in on you, but once again I got a better drive out of turn 6 and managed to get past him with the extra momentum I was carrying. At this point I was getting a little bit more aggressive with the overtakes because I hadn't had a bit of clear track to myself for the entire session, so I knew my times would have been well off. I was on a flying lap, and guess who's parked right in the centre of the track? Oh, it's me mother. I gave her a bit of a nudge, by accident of course, and as I was saying sorry, someone snuck up right behind me and I couldn't even move over to defend, so there was only one thing for it. The old switcheroo. A yellow flag was brought out, which definitely wasn't because our man was facing the wrong way at all. But on the restart I pounced on Liam, who I think was just really unfortunate with where the lights were placed when they turned green. I managed another overtake on what's slowly turning into my favourite spot on this track to get past people, the up ramp of course, and that was the end of session 2. Now I didn't really have any quick laps at all, but somehow I managed to pip Jim for first place. The goal for session 3 though was a simple one: try and set the quickest lap of the week. If it started with 39 instead of 40, it'd be mission success. So we headed back out on track, and I noticed we only had 13 karts on track instead of 16, so now we have a little bit less traffic to navigate. It was totally doable. It would have been nice if my kart was being used when I was taking a break like everyone else's, but it was just left in the pit lane to cool down, and that meant I had a little bit more fuel in the tank compared to everyone else too. Right, racing driver excuses out of the way, let's set off for the final session. I found myself behind Glenn as we rolled out of the pits, so I just stuck to his back bumper as we navigated our way past the first couple of karts, and I did have a cheeky look around the outside on the top floor, which is not an overtaking place at all. I just did it for a laugh. Going into the T2 hairpin, Glenn made up a position and I tried to make a similar move at T4 to get past the guy separating us. I didn't get a great exit, mainly because Glenn cut straight across me, but I still managed to keep the inside line for the next corner. I decided to go defensive into the left at turn 6, which just led me being whacked into next week from behind. By this point, Glenn had made his way past Chambo, and I was in the process of doing the same thing into the turn 2 hairpin, when I got hit from behind again, by the same guy and all. You've got brakes, mate. Try using them, yeah? One lap later though, and we were back up Glenn's arse. Of course I had to let him know that I was there. Well, a couple of times actually, but I knew I was going to have to get past him to set the quickest lap time. So as we headed around T4, I made sure I stuck my nose up the inside because the plan was to take a wide line at turn 6 and overtake him on the run up the hill. It was a little bit sloppy, but I got the job done just as a yellow flag was waved, so he didn't even get the chance to fight back. Right after clearing him though, I was stuck behind his lass. Sophie is quick. You can see I tried to move up the inside on the up ramp, but because there was a little bit of contact, even though there wasn't really anything I could have done to avoid it, I let her go, but she was gone like shit off a shovel. She cleared Chambo with ease, which is more than what can be said when I tried to do it. Not sure why everyone's putting me in the wall today, but I've dished out a few too, so I'll just have to take some, I guess. And I thought to myself, I'll slow down to try and get a clear bit of track, but I had someone right behind me, so I just had to go for it again. Anyway, over the next 2 laps I passed Chambo and Sophie in exactly the same place by going in really tight on the entry of turn 4. If you can get the move done on the entry, you can cover off any potential re-overtake by just drifting across the exit. Brownie was the next kart to pass, so I threw it down the inside of the first corner and just about made it stick. And by this point in the session, my mother had started picking up the pace to the point where you couldn't just drive around her anymore. Unfortunately though, she still has a little bit to learn as she flew off into the distance. Now this was the only time I had a bit of free track to set some decent times in this third session, so I had to make it count before I caught back up to anyone. And I had a good couple of laps before I eventually came across Marius, and as soon as we got past him with a nice move into T2, it was all over. The question was, had I managed to set the quickest time of the week by breaking the 40-second barrier? Well, aye, never in doubt. That's it for now though. Make sure you go check out the latest video on the channel to enter the free giveaway, and go drop me a follow over on Instagram if you want to attend the next karting session I go to, because I'm always on the lookout for more people to come. Drop the video a like if you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.